What I'm going to do right now is just basically go through Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, what that means. Muslims are divided essentially into two major groups, the Sunni and the Shia. The Shia are historically, they are the people that supported Imam Ali in his push for, they were called Shi'atu Ali. And it's a historical reality. He went up against Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, and he definitely had his support. The idea that Imam Ali was practicing tuqya, for me, is hard to believe, but that is a Shia view, that Imam Ali really felt that he should have been the caliph immediately after the Prophet ﷺ died, and that there was great wrongs done to the family of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, the Shia historically fall into different categories. The Rawafid and the Ghulat of the Shia were tended to be looked very negatively by the people of Sunnah. But there were Shia whose tashayyu was khafif, and Imam al-Bukhari relates Shia in Sahih al-Bukhari. And a lot of people don't know that, but there are Shia transmitters in Sahih al-Bukhari. So this idea that the Shia were all evil and something like that is not an early view of things. But the Rawafid and the people, at-ta'nu fi ashabi Rasulillah, those people that spoke ill or spoke ill of Aisha radiallahu anhu, generally were looked upon very negatively by the ulama that came to be known as the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And all I would say is that the Shia tradition is an alternative narrative. And from within the Shia tradition itself, it's a very strong argument, which is why they have very brilliant scholars. And some of them are extraordinarily well-versed in all the sciences of Islam, Arabic. And so from within their perspective, it all makes sense. And that's why the Muslims have never been able to really resolve this problem. There have always been brilliant Shia scholars, and there have been debates in the community, and it's just insoluble. So it's best left like that. It's just not, the best thing that we can have is just a peaceful coexistence, which has happened throughout history in many places. The Muslims and the Sunnis and the Shias have lived together without problems in many places. Al-Ahsa is a good example. Half the city is Shia and the other half is Sunni. And the Shia keep to themselves, the Sunnis keep to themselves. They don't hate each other. They just live their kind of separate lives, and they don't have those kind of problems. In America in particular, we should really avoid conflicts between the Sunni and Shia. I mean, it's really important here that we really avoid some of the baggage from back home. That's my view about things. I'm very committed to Sunni tradition, is what I was taught. It also makes the most sense to me personally. I mean, I looked at the Shia tradition. I was interested in it for during that early period when during the Iranian Revolution, I got interested in it just as a phenomenon. And for me personally, I've never had any allegiance to anything other than the truth. I mean, I'm just not interested in a kind of tribal approach to religion. Like, I'm Bani Sunnah and they're Bani Shia, and our tribe's better than their tribe. If something appears to me to be true, right? And but I would say one thing, that the Ahl Sunnah downplayed considerably what happened. And if you study the history, there's two versions. One is a very whitewashed history, which tends to be taught. And the other is what really happened. And what really happened is actually kind of hard to believe. What happened to the family of the Prophet, the insurrections that occurred, the brutality that was directed against them, it's all history. It's not something that people can say did not happen. It did happen. Muli Idris is a good example of that, who fled from the Hijaz to Morocco and founded the Adarisa Dawla there in Morocco, which the Moroccans tend to claim that it was Maliki, and some say that he was actually part of the Shia tradition. So, Allahu Alam. But from that tradition, the Zaydiya, who are the people of northern Yemen, geographically northern. Yemen's one country now, but geographically in the northern part of Yemen, you have the Zaydiya. And the Zaydiya, who are called the Fivers as well, because you have the Fivers, the Seveners, and the Ithna Ashariya, the Twelvers. The Zaydiya are the closest from the Shia community to the Ahl Sunnah. They don't speak ill of Abu Bakr or Omar. They don't have a problem with their Khalifa, but they prefer Imam Ali over those two, and felt that he should have been the first caliph. So that's their view. And Imam Shawkani, who arguably is not a Zaydi, he was raised a Zaydi, and he was raised in that tradition. So, but he's an example of just an incredibly brilliant scholar. So the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, which is a form